Welcome back, wannabes and creators, to another episode of The Complete Creative, the podcast that helps you make the best work of your life and share it with the world. And today, I have a really special guest for you, because I actually have two guests for you. Kristine and Colin Poole are fine artists out of New Mexico, specifically Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I met them at World Fantasy Convention in November of last year, and they were just so lovely. I spent a lot of time talking to Kristine at my table about what it takes to build and sustain a business, and I absolutely loved what they had to say. So I asked them if they'd be on the show, and they were actually my last interview of 2019. And one of my first interviews here in 2020. So I can't wait for you to hear from them. Before you get started, I just want to remind you to please go and subscribe to the show. Leave a review. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the new format. Almost all of the reviews that we have are from the Business of Art format. And I'd love to know what you think about the new change to The Complete Creative. If you're still trying to build your career, or even if you've been at it for a while, I think you would really love my two nonfiction books, How to Build a Creative Career and How to Become a Successful Author. You can check those out on Amazon or wherever books are sold. And you could head on over to thecompletecreative.com to see all of our blog posts, free courses, and the archives to this podcast. I hope you'll check it out. But now, on with the show. Take it away, Kristine and Colin. Tell us what you're passionate about these days.
Well, certainly each other. That's something that never wanes. But I think something that we've been talking about a fair bit is part of our creative path is that, of course, there's the sculpture and the artwork that we create, but we also continually create how we approach our business. And one of the things that we've been having a lot of fun talking about lately is standing where we are and having experienced what we've experienced and the things that have worked and the things that haven't. We've been having some really great conversations about what do we want to do now? Where do we want to go now? Because we keep reinventing not only the artwork that we create, but also the life that we have together and the approach to business. So I think, yeah, go ahead.
I was reading up on you, and you had an interview in a magazine or on a website, and you said, I spend more time on business than I'd like. And I read the whole article, but for some reason those words stuck out to me, because for me, I always love it when people are willing to at least acknowledge that, like, while you want to spend more time creating, way too much of life is about actually handling the business part of it, for at least, especially for successful creative types.
Absolutely. I think that you're often looking at when you can carve out the time to create between all of the detritus of the business side of it that just has to get done.
How do you guys go about creating, handling that creating part?
I think a lot of times it seems that we are dealing. Okay, so first of all, we say yes to just about everything anybody ever asks us to do. So you want a magazine article, we say yes. You want a podcast, we say yes. And so oftentimes we're managing things based on what's coming up next and what we have to tend to. For instance, last fall when we first met you, we were in a series of, I think we did 5 or 6 shows within the span of 3 months, all of which we drive to because we're bringing sculptures. And so each time we got back in between, we were just tending to what we needed to do for the next show, the marketing materials we needed and the actual physical artwork we needed, the things that had gotten depleted, doing rush orders with the foundry. So I think a lot of times we're actually dealing with the deadlines that way, which are basically self-imposed because they're all things we agree to. But one of the things that we've been talking about is we have this nice little 3-month gap right now where we haven't agreed to much of anything. And so what can we do right now that allows us to get a really great jump into the next bodies of work and replenishing the things that we've depleted in the shows? And, what was working and what wasn't working when we're going to these shows in terms of our marketing and collecting information from people so that we can maintain contact. So we're looking at this next 3 months with a great deal of excitement.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there are a lot of things. It seems like such a treat to look at a window of time when you can actually create with minimal interruptions of the business side, or maybe less interruptions from the business side, which are always there. They're always part of the day. But now we have a block of time where some of the larger projects that we've been thinking about will have an opportunity to get jump-started. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, and I think it's looking at what we've done, certainly throughout our career, but more specifically in the last year or the last 6 months, they were like, yeah, that actually really worked. And I don't ever want to do it that way again. That was way too much stress. So really continually looking at self-assessing. And so in terms of, approaching the business right now, I could very easily just go, cool, I can make sculptures for 3 months and not tend to anything, but that would be a bad choice. And so part of my thinking right now is what are the marketing materials? What are the business things that we're going to get slammed by come April that we could actually take time right now and actually approach it in a way that's a little bit calmer and more enjoyable than the last minute panic.
And we live at a sort of frenetic pace. That's kind of what we do. We work all the time. We work every day from very early till very late. But a lot of it is a sort of a triage approach where whatever's coming up, and it's the rush for that particular event, that particular show, whatever it is that's in line, there's always a lot of work. And since for those of us familiar with how we approach the sculpture, we're primarily bronze or fired clay. We do virtually all of the process in the studio with the exception of the physical pouring of the bronze, which is done off-site in a foundry. But the waxworks, the molds, the bronze chasing, the grinding, the welding, all of that, the patinas are done here. And so we take on a huge portion of that. And there are few things that we can actually hand off to somebody else and then, have them deliver it in the way we wish. So that it fills our days quite completely.
Yeah, and I think, sorry if you never get to have another question again, but
We're running with one question.
I think, our intentions are good with our scheduling. So in the fall, we had intended to do IlixCon, which is a big show in Reading, Pennsylvania. We go every year, and it's a long show, and it's a long drive for us. It's a 3-day drive and like a 5-day show plus setup and breakdown. And so it ends up being close to 2 weeks. And we plan to do that every fall, and that's coming up. But then we got a surprise invitation to Lightbox Expo, which was a great show. We loved it. And we said yes. And so we went and did that. And then on top of all of that, so, the schedule was actually okay. But then we said yes to doing World Fantasy Con, and we said yes to doing Designer Con, and we said yes to doing a delivery in Arizona of a life-size sculpture. So they're like opportunities that come your way that we're going to say yes to, but maybe what we need to look at this year is allowing for the space in the schedule that we know we're going to say yes to other things, and making sure that we actually have the time and energy ability to accommodate those additional things on top of our regular schedule.
And to give you sort of an idea of what we're talking about with the pace of it, we did the IX, which was in eastern Pennsylvania. We live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, so we drive out there. We drive there we always think we're going to spend 3 days, but usually we do it on minimal sleep, taking turns getting out there. That finished up on a Sunday night. We had to be in D.C. on Monday night, and we had to be in L.A. on Thursday. So from driving from D.C. to L.A., you're looking at a minimal amount of time to get from A to B across the country. and then we're coming back, we're in the studio very briefly for a window, then we're delivering a sculpture in Arizona, then we're doing another event in LA. It's a fair amount of road time as well.
But if we had said no, basically the art director from World Fantasy Con saw us at IlixCon and invited us to come do that show. If we'd said no to that, we wouldn't have met you. So, you look at it and you think, yeah, that was exhausting, and I really would prefer not to plan it that way. But there's always something great that comes out of us participating in one of these random serendipitous events that come our way.
Well, you're also talking about, you have a term for it, and I'm not coming up with it, the sort of the bycatch of doing an event or saying yes to something is often something that's unforeseen.
The intangibles.
Exactly. So why don't you expand on that?
So, yeah, when we go to a show, of course, the primary thing we're looking for is to be able to sell the work and to hopefully meet new collectors, make connections within, the different industries that we interact with, perhaps increase our social media base, our email base. But the main thing you're going for is to try to sell your work. That's what recoups your costs and helps us to make more work. And the intangibles are things like meeting, saying, hey, there's a social media event at World Fantasy Con and this guy Russell's doing it. And we go and we like what you're saying a lot. And we like your energy and we like your enthusiasm. And so we make a point of going and talking to you and meeting you. And, then we get this opportunity to do this podcast. But I hope that will continue to be a relationship that's mutually fruitful. And those are the intangibles of going to the shows.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I always try to do, I call it leverage points, which is like one thing does five things. So when you're going to a show, you get to meet all of these other people. You get to build your email list. You get to make money. You get to do you get to build your authority in your space. You get to do 3, 4, maybe 6 things, especially if you're doing panels as well, to drive your brand forward. And so I take every December off because of exactly what you're talking about. Is I always feel like I'm overworked and under and over leveraged, or I did in previous years. But in 2015, I was forced to sort of take a considerably longer break than I expected. And instead of freaking out about that, I decided to use it as an opportunity to plan for the future, not just figuring out like what worked this year, but what couple of things I could do in the next year to really drive the brand forward, instead of just having sort of doing the next thing on my plate.
Yeah, I was reading about that in your book, actually. And I thought, well, that sounds lovely to take a month and just, because I think we don't do that enough where, I think in the creative fields, we're oftentimes we're so aware of time and how little time there is. And, how none of us know how much longer we have before it's all over. And you want to create all the things that you have to say before it's over. None of us ever will. But the idea of being able to take that time to look where you've been and think about where you want to be, taking into account the things that worked and the things that didn't that you've tried. And not just, as you're saying, not just planning for the next year, but looking ahead 5 years and saying, well, gosh, where do you want to be? I mean, if I look 5 years back where we are right now, I would have, if somebody had told me we would be where we are right now, I would have been like, no way, man. It's so not happening, So
I think we also look at the little chunks of time, which are these tiny little gifts that if you can use them effectively, can actually be a really productive space. But you often stumble across them at times when they're unexpected, so they're less easy to plan for. But it may be literally the 10 minutes here or the 20 minutes there that come between two need to dos, as Kristine says, that you have the need to dos and the want to dos, and between the need to dos and how do you maximize those little chunks of time? What do you do to make it useful. And we've just started this literally, I think it was yesterday, where making tiny little flashcards to write down a list of different things that come up, and you think, gosh, if I had 10 minutes, there are these 40 things that I could do in those 10-minute time. But when that 10 minutes crops up, oftentimes it's not on the forefront of your mind that, oh my gosh, I really wanted to do fill in the blank. And so now we're trying to figure out what's a better way than the interminable list that you write out, spend too much time writing and never read, and how can you have a really flexible way of flashing through and going, okay, we've got half an hour between this engagement and that engagement. What can we do? What can we do creatively? What can we do in our relationship? What can we do professionally? That's still a useful period of time. Let's use it.
What are some of the things that we've talked about doing that whenever we talk about it, we're like, that would be so much fun.
Yes.
I would love to do that. And oftentimes it's not like I have to plan 2 weeks for that. If I had a half an hour, I could do this thing that I've thought about that would just, amuse me and inspire me. And I do find that it seems like when Colin's talking about the interminable lists, I am a list maker. But I find that the part where things fall out is I don't have built into my schedule or my process continually referring back to that. And something about having the things on the flashcards where I can flip through them and pick out two that I say, okay, I'm going to, work on these things today, that are on top of perhaps maybe we have some time to work on our artwork, but, maybe I'm going to add the emails that I collected from the last show that we were at. And, one other thing, something about being able to flip through all of them and pick a couple out that I can then put out and say, okay, this is all you have to do today. And I'm not looking at this huge list going, oh my God, where do I start? Where the wheels of your mind can just start spinning, because how do you start to climb this mountain of things that you have to tend to?
You're breaking it down into tiny little chunks that are digestible. Yeah. And it also catches some of the things that you forget about. You think, great idea. And then it flits out of your mind because there's something more pressing that takes your focus. And then when that little window comes up again, it's not in the forefront. So this is a way to keep some of those, and we'll let you know how that works. But we've got little boxes for them and little color-coded, half-sized flashcards, and we're going to give it a whirl.
Visual people, it has to look pretty.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And they're pretty little boxes.
I love that though, because then you can also throw them away, and when you get done, it's not just scratching them out; it's tossing them somewhere.
Yes, you can have a ritual burn of them, so that, yes, I accomplished this. But it keeps the good stuff there, and the chaff you can pitch with glee.
Yeah, and the interesting thing was I was making a list, and I was talking to Colin about this, and he's like, what about flashcards? And I was like, flashcards? I don't want to do flashcards. But then as I thought about it more and more, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so brilliant. I love that idea. So
I have to ask, do you have different colors for different lengths of time that things will take?
Yes, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so there'll be different colors for, what is professional, what is a sculptural project, what is a relationship thing that you're just itching to do if you've got 10 minutes, and I'm trying not to laugh on that one. So we're going to try and figure out, because there's a lot of life that consumes our time, and what can we do with that? And some are major projects, major things that are all consuming, and even having those. So some of those will have different colors. So that's the big sculptures, the big things, the big projects that we just want to get to.
And I think a lot of it is actually really focused on the things that we want to do and we talk about doing, and then we forget that we talked about it. It sounds kind of funny, but we do. So, if we have worked all day and we decide, okay, 7:00, we're having dinner, we're done. Having that, next couple of hours, sometimes the brain will go blank and you'll be like, I don't know what to do with free time. Really, I don't. And so just having something that we could flip through and say, oh yeah, we wanted to actually sit down with some tea and read some books. And, we wanted to practice drawing anatomy with this great anatomy course that we watch, which is called Proco. And we want to dance together. And, all of these things that would just nurture our creativity and our relationship. And it sounds ridiculous that you wouldn't be able to think of it, but when you're all the time working on a schedule and deadlines, when you're faced with 2 hours of free time, you're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, no, I mean, sometimes it's the time where you're sitting on a plane and you're like, gosh, I've got 2 hours. How can I maximize this? What can I do other than sit and be bored out of my mind? Then it's just keeping those things. What is it? It's going to be sketching these 40 concepts that I wanted to do, or writing this element, or reading this particular book that I've never gotten around to. It's all how can we use that? So we also just sort of background on us. We live in a world that's very focused on art, and so we live in a gorgeous house in the foothills of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains that overlooks Santa Fe, and we have much of our house is devoted to an exhibition space which shows paintings and sculptures, and any given time there may be 150 examples of both paintings and sculptures. And we have a studio, a kitchen, and a bedroom. There's no dining room, there's no living room, there's no TV, there's no couch. And so we don't have those distractions that are often in, I think, more typical households. We keep it focused on art.
You said something a while ago that was talking about the wants versus the needs to do. And I think it's so important that we revisit it, because it's especially when you get involved in an art career and you've been working all your life to basically like do the thing you want. Like, this is the thing you want, theoretically, like to like do art all the time is the thing that you want. You start, it starts to consume you. And when you don't have that understanding that like your wants have to expand outside of just the art, you do sort of get consumed by it. I was just reading an article about animators. There's an animation studio in Vancouver that just closed, the ones who did the Sonic movie. And they were talking about, working 17-hour days. And that's not uncommon for people in LA to work 17-hour days doing their animation or their art, because like that's the thing that they always wanted to do. And then they leave and they're like, well, what do I do? How do I human? I've been spending my whole life, doing this thing, turning the thing that I want to do into the thing I need to do to survive. Meanwhile, everything else has sort of gone by the wayside. So I think it's great that you are, taking time for more of the reading the books and adding that into your life, because you're right. When you don't have that like on the schedule moment or top of mind moment, it does. There are the fleeting things that do just go out because they're quote unquote less important than getting this piece of work done, but they're also more important than getting those pieces of work done because they're the things we're living for.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. No,
And I think it's an interesting conversation and fun to get to have it with other creatives, because we love what we do, and we're very aware and very grateful that we get to do what we get to do. And so it's not a point of complaint. It's just looking at the span of your life and how do you have a life that is just brilliant and creative and lovely and joyful. And because the more that we have a life like that internally, the more that we can bring that out externally with the people that we interact with and the communities we interact with. I think when your spirit has been nurtured and you feel cared for and loved, not just by like your partner, but also by yourself, I think you bring that out into the other communities, and you can help that to grow with other people. And so I think you're right. I think it is so important to be aware of the want to do's and figure out a way, whatever method it is. And we've tried many, many methods, obviously all of which are not working. but we have high hopes for our flashcards.
Yeah. Well, I think it also ultimately reflects back into the artwork. Your personal joy, that's going to have its voice in what you create. We also, when we do take time off, we don't take weekends off, and we don't take days off, but we do occasionally make journeys to different parts of the world to look at particular artworks or to enjoy particular museums, and that we do really intensely. So we'll go to, for example, we'll go to Paris for a couple of weeks, and then we'll alternate days between the Louvre and the d'Orsay, and both of them are open till 10 o'clock on one day, on 2 days a week. That probably didn't make any sense. And so we'll alternate between the one that was open till 10 o'clock. We get there at opening, we enjoy the work until 10 o'clock, and then we switch to the other museum so that we can do the same thing till 10 o'clock, till they kick us out. And this is incredibly both intense and rejuvenating, and feeds what we create, because we're just sort of reveling in what has been created before us.
The last couple of times we've done that, there have been other artists from around the globe that have flown in to join us, and that's been absolutely fabulous, because the kinds of conversations that you can have in front of artworks with other artists is astounding. We're actually going to San Diego next month. There's we didn't plan this, somebody else did, but there's a Bouguereau show where they've collected over 50 of his paintings in one place in the museum in San Diego, and some other artists they've rented this bed and breakfast place that sleeps like 36 people. I don't know how that's possible, but so we're all going and staying in the same place, and we're planning to go to the museum to look at the show during the days. And then they're all having this conversation on Facebook about, well, are you guys bringing your paints? Do you guys want to paint in the evening? And all of us sculptors are like, we don't paint, but we'll be the models. But so it's like there are other people that actually do this as well, where you get together with the other artists to look at art and talk about art. And that said, one of the things we've said over and over about World Fantasy Con is that when the authors came by to look at the work, they are the most articulate and observant people we have ever interacted with at a show. The kinds of comments and conversations that we were having with the authors, it was really spectacular. Time and again, we were like, wow, I wish I'd been recording what you were saying about my work. Because
no wonder they're writers.
I know. I need you to write all my stuff about my work.
That's wonderful. And yeah, it's having those moments where you're with, and this goes back to not just conventions, but just having that community around you that can like rejuvenate you and give you a reason. It is hard. It's so hard because like you get to a certain level of your career and you're doing this full time, right? And it almost feels, trying to think of the word. It almost feels like blasphemous in a way to be like, I don't want to say complain about it, but be like, well, it's not like, yes, I'm doing the thing that like many millions of people want to do as my full-time job, but like that doesn't mean that it doesn't come with its own struggles, and that doesn't mean it doesn't come with its own like I need to shut this writer brain off sometimes and like veg out, or like go to Rome or go to somewhere that like I don't have to think about writing. I travel internationally mainly, and I don't particularly like traveling in America, mainly because when I'm in America I always have a phone on me. And I always have a data plan that I can access. And when I go to another country or another place, I literally can't access it without paying more money. So it like costs, I don't know, $10, $20, $30 a day to use my phone. And I've only had like 2 days while I've been traveling internationally that I was like, yes, that is worth it to pay the extra money on top of all of that things. And it really allows me to focus my energy on being present, which is a very big problem for me when I run 3 companies here.
I agree. I think being able to drop out of sight is important. It's important in rejuvenating oneself. I don't have a cell phone. Kristine does. And part of that is also what you're talking about. It's the focus. It's to keep the eye on the things that I need to without the distractions.
Well, and this show is the perfect example of that also, because like it's an hour that I can't check my phone, that I am forced to like be fully present in this moment in this conversation. And when I brought the show back, I told myself that like I cannot worry about the viewership count, even though I still worry about the viewership count. What I have to worry about is having that hour to connect with somebody that I desperately want to connect with, and be able to spend an hour just getting to know them better. And that is its own rejuvenation for me, where it's like there's no other distractions. There's only this conversation. And I don't have many times in my life when that's the big focus for me next year, is like, how do I get more space between the thing that I do and myself as a human? Because, you know, it all gets mashed together, especially when you're doing something artistic, where it's like Russell is a writer, and that is the thing that he does from when he gets up to when he goes to bed. And I would like to focus on saying Russell is a person who writes and also a person who does these other things in 2020.
Yeah, maybe that's something that's a thread that's running through the creative community, because I think that is the nature of conversation that we've been having as well. We just wrote an article for a beautiful Bizarre magazine out of Australia, and that was one of the things that Colin talked about in the article, because part of the conversation they were interested in are what are the challenges that you face, and he was talking a lot about that. Being so wrapped up in being an artist and the life of the artist, and missing, you can fill in. Okay. I don't want to tell your story for you, but you know, that for a while he had started, you know, having a cup of tea in the garden, and it was beautiful. The views here are beautiful. The Santa Fe is beautiful. And then he got so busy that he didn't have time. He couldn't figure out how to fit that time into his schedule. And, you know, he was saying in the article that he misses sleeping until dawn and riding his bike down the mountain with the dog and feeling like, wow, it's a beautiful day. We could actually take the dogs and, you know, go for a couple-hour hike. That always feels like such a
luxury.
Like a luxury, or almost like you're betraying your artistic self to do that, even though we know that our artistic self would basically be going, oh, thank God, thank you.
Yeah.
You know,
take an evening off.
We know that logically, but boy, it's hard to do that. And I think it is part of being the human that creates art, as well as being the human that lives this life that is glorious.
Yeah, so my big thing is that happened this year was I had a lot of books that just like failed to. They like were massive failures by my standards. Maybe not by other people's standards, but by my own standards. Like they were like a tenth of what I expected to make on these books, and I found myself going into a massive depression. Really bad depression, like worse than I've had in a long time, because like my value as a human was so intrinsically linked to these books that it became dangerous. And yes, the successes were great when like it's like, oh well, like people must really like me as a human. Like look at how Russell Human is succeeding right now. And it was great for those couple of years where most everything that I did was a hit. But when I started, when this first part of this year really knocked me for a loop, because the same thing that happens with success started happening with the failure. And I was like, well, Russell Human, am failure because this didn't sell. And it took me many, many months to sort of unglue it even a little bit, to be like, no, Russell, you made some miscalculations and some mistakes as a business person. Your work is still good as a writer, but in either of those respects, neither of them is you. You exist over here in this other place that is where the books and the businesses are a part of what you do, but if they both failed tomorrow, you would not be a failure. You would be a human who failed.
Yeah, I think you and I were talking about that at the World Fantasy Con, where I was saying that I wanted to do, I don't know if it would be a comic book or a short book, but something about the ad hominem artist or creative, where, the creative process is you have this idea that you're inspired by and you're so excited about, and then you start doing it and you start running into some of the challenges and difficulties, and then you say, wow, this is a lot of work, or this really sucks, or whatever. And then invariably for a lot of creatives, we go to that next step, which I think is what you're talking about, where we're going, okay, well, I must really suck. Instead of, that third step, if you could get to the point where you're like, okay, well, this experience wasn't working, and you can stay in the realm of problem solving of, okay, well, why didn't it work? And, how can I make this better, or how can I make better choices in the future? When you slip into that, I'm not working or I suck, that will, in my experience, certainly for me as well, can derail me for a ridiculous amount of time trying to, as you're saying, unglue myself from that, whether it was a real failing or a perceived failing. I think if you can stay in that problem solving mode, then you pretty quickly bounce back up to, well, actually, this wasn't that bad. And then you come right back into that, wow, this was a really great idea, and I'm super inspired by this. But I think it's that little rut that you can fall into where instead of in your mind looking at the thing that you did and the experience you had, it all starts to come back and reflect exactly on who you are as a person. And I think being uber sensitive, as we all are, finding whatever our own personal way is of not going into that space, and to stay into the problem solving of, okay, well, I tried that, and it was okay, but it wasn't great. Like we did a show this year, what you're talking about with your books, and we were staying with some friends, and we sold this life-size piece, which was great, but we came back and we're like, well, yeah, that was kind of a sucky show.
Yeah, we came back and thinking that this is pretty much a disaster. We're not doing this again. Yeah,
it's a disaster, and nobody liked our work there, and whatever. And I'm much worse about that than Colin. And our friend was like, your bad show is like my, oh my God, phenomenal show. I would be on cloud nine. And we're like, okay, thank you, reality check.
Yes. And we've been very fortunate.
We've been very fortunate.
But we also have very high expectations, right. like what you were talking about with your books. It sounds as though you've got very high expectations, or you have expectations, and then the book, the publish, or the show, or what have you, does not meet those, and then that can easily, with the wrong mindset, put you in a tailspin, or the right mindset, you look at that and go, okay, this is information to have. This is what we can learn. This is how we can readapt. We can shift and we can change. And is it the expectations? Are we in the wrong spot? Is it? You can analyze that and determine, is this something where there's actually a great lesson that you learn that you can take on to refine the direction that you're headed in. And this is something that we talk about a fair bit, both between ourselves and also with others, is how you shift and change and how you adapt as time goes on. And there are few artists that we know, some of them, we can only think of one actually, who have followed one particular path for decades, and it's worked for him. Most of us, we shift and change, and we refocus, and we, for ourselves, we have our fingers in little pots, many different directions at once, so that we can have more things on our plate at any given time. So when one does not work out, there are others that will. So that it can help with the income flow as well.
Yeah, because I have 5 companies, and like not one month this year did 2 companies have the best month 2 months in a row.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I think if you've created a structure around yourself like that, where you can say, okay, well, this didn't work in this area, but you know what, over there, that's actually really doing something I didn't expect, and it's really great. I think it can keep your mindset positive. I think I had a similar experience maybe to you, where there was a show that I thought about doing for a very long time, and the work was all fine and great that I made for it. I was happy with the work I did, but there was a lot of things that had happened that I had no control over, that caused the show to not have the marketing, and it didn't have the response that I had hoped for. And, that's really, even having multiple irons and multiple fires, it was hard to deal with emotionally, because the work was so close to me, and I thought about it for so long, and I was so excited about it. And it's hard not to make that be about yourself and who you are as an artist, and just to say, okay, well, I'm going to take this work and show it to other audiences and see, where is the audience that responds to this particular work? And maybe the work as a group has to be split apart, and, different parts go to different audiences. But what I found was I was working on a major commission, but I spent several months this summer weeding our property. And Colin kept telling me, he's like, there are these really nasty weeds that have all these pickers, and they spread all over the place, and they're just horrible. And I just got obsessed about doing it. And Colin was telling me, he's like, well, I don't know what's going on with that, but obviously it's doing something. But for me, it was a great metaphor for the weeds that spread up in your mind. So you've got this beautiful creative field in your mind, and then there are these weeds that pop up and they throw seeds all over the place, and you might pull the weed out, but then, that couple of seeds that got in the ground, under the ground, will pop up a little bit later when you didn't expect it, because I think for a lot of us, you might go into that kind of dark, self-doubting space, and then you come out of it and everything's great, and you're like, I am never going to go there again because life is so wonderful and this is terrific. But then, sometimes something else will happen, and then those little weeds will sprout. And I found that the actual physical, for me, the physical act of being able to go out and clear entire field of space to represent, like emotionally clearing that space in my own mind. I absolutely loved that experience, and I'm not a gardener.
Yeah, but it became sort of like a totem for you.
It was like a totem.
Or meditation. You think of the Japanese who trim that mountain, the hill with grass, with one blade at a time, with tweezers, and people. This is what they do, and it's part of the, sort of a meditation, or it's a way of focusing. And I think oftentimes it's taking a half step back from the oh man, that was a failure, and realizing, okay, what can we learn from it, and was it actually a failure? So there are things, Kristine's talking about a show. We're creatives. We're everybody in this conversation, and hopefully everybody who's listening to it. You're pouring yourself into what you do, and it's this intangible part of yourself that you express through your art, through your writing, through your poetry, through your music, whatever it is, and that's hard to quantify how much of you is actually being put into your work. But that is something that makes us very sensitive when it doesn't work out as expected. And so, for example, Kristine's talking about a show where she's spending many months, many intense hours creating the work for this event. And when the event doesn't go as brilliantly as planned, which actually it did go brilliantly, but there were hiccups in it that were uncontrollable. And that, for example,
it was out of our control.
Yeah, there was nothing that we could have done that would have shifted the events. I'm going to just quickly talk about a different thing that what I had, lining up a show where a similar thing, big show, huge amount of my art in it, all of the promotion to make it, to get the potential clients through the door, very well attended, everything's going brilliantly, citywide power outage. And it's a nighttime show. And we're in the dark. People are looking at artwork through the light of their cell phones. There's some things that sometimes there's nothing you can do. You smile and you roll with it and you see what happens. But realizing that, was the show affected by that? And there's nothing you can do. You just you move on.
Yeah, and I think if when you do go into one of the difficult times or the dark spaces, because we talk with a lot of younger artists, and this is a topic that comes up a lot. But if whatever it is that you need to do, whether it's taking a month and focusing on something else, or going to a museum to be inspired, or weeding your entire property, to do something that allows you to come out stronger on the other side. I think oftentimes there's an attitude that it's like, well, just pull it together and, just get back to work and do all that. And I think sometimes you do actually have to allow yourself to kind of join the muse into the darkness, with the intention to come back out. So what I had come out of my experience was with the term that sometimes you have to weed the mind fields. You just kind of have to take the time to do what you need to do. I think the trick is to not get so embroiled in that you lose your way, you lose your path, and you end up taking a decade off of your creative pursuits, because that does happen.
Yeah, I just had this happen, and so weird. So my friend messaged me the other day where I was going through this. I had just written a book, and I didn't really want to edit it, and I was like taking my sweet time, and like it just was not happening, and I knew it was partially mental and partially, no, it was all mental basically. And my friend messaged me and was like, "Hey, there's a 2-for-1 special on Masterclass. I don't know if you know Masterclass is this website.
We do. We love it."
Yeah, and so she's like, "There's 2-for-1, so they're usually $180, but like it's $90." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure, I'll do it." I really wanted to take this Neil Gaiman lecture.
Yeah,
we did the same. I was going to say that we know it through Neil Gaiman. That was the sign up part right there.
So I took it, and and suddenly like I'm in the middle of it, and I'm like, I need to edit this book now. I'm like, I don't know what it was just like I'd been doing all of this stuff. I like go on a lot of walks, and I go on and I like read a lot of stuff, and I never know what's going to spark that like getting back to the work again. But I always know that it comes in like very weird places. Sometimes it'll come from like a passage in a book. This time it came from just listening to that Neil Gaiman lecture, and I listened to like, I don't know, one of the lessons, and I was like, I'm going to edit this. And I don't think I like learned anything from that I didn't already know as a writer. It's just there was something about him talking about writing that like grew that spark in me again. And I've learned to like, you never know what's going to relight that spark. But for me, it's just like experiencing the world while I'm in that funk, and like going to places and going to galleries and reading books, and not necessarily forcing the book to keep being written or the project to keep being done, but just know that like something in the world is going to like relight it, and then it will be relit because it's something that is deep in there. At this point, I've been doing this for a decade. It's like something that's deep in there. Like nothing's going to like shut it out forever. I just have to find the way in. And this time in particular, it just happened to be like Neil Gaiman talking about world building.
Yeah, I think maybe that is the thing that comes with experience, is that, if you are in that kind of fallow space where you're not producing, and the ideas that you have that you've been excited about, somehow you just can't manage to get started on it. I think having experience, that's one of the things that you could give to people that don't have the experience, is that if you hang in there and don't bail and decide you're going to go, work at Walmart, you will come out the other side. And that inspiration will come back, and you will get back to the work that you need to do. But I think the important thing is to be conscious about choosing that, it's not just letting life happen to you, that, you're aware that you're like, okay, so I'm kind of in this space where I'm in between, and I'm conscious of it, and I'm choosing to read books or go for walks or do whatever with the intention to find what it is that my creative self needs in order to get back on track. And I think sometimes when people have lost themselves for a long period of time, it's because there wasn't that intention of, I know that I'm going to find myself again. I just, have to do these other things at this point. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, it absolutely does, because and for me it was just like these books are not insignificantly an insignificant cost to make, and so it's my brain has been just like fighting writing more of them, because the novels that I have been writing have been unsuccessful. But I also know that all of the novels that I wrote prior to this year causing me to have a big breakthrough this year. Like, I feel like the last few novels that I've written have been leaps and bounds better than the books that I wrote before. And so it's eventually my brain, my heart had to like overcome my brain and be like, look, man, you're a writer. You just got to write the things, and like don't hire a professional editor yet or something, but like you've got to write them, because like it's down there to do it, and if you don't do it, you're going to be miserable.
Were you going to say something?
Yeah, well, I was going to touch on what you had mentioned before, which is that one of the things that for those people who are newer to the life of the creatives, this is it's a roller coaster, it's a financial roller coaster. It can be emotional, it can be creative. All of this, there's ups and downs to it. It's an absolutely wonderful life, and I adore what we do and how we are and how we live. Probably the difference in my perspective from having been in it for a long time is that you become not immune to it, but you become very aware that, yes, this is how it rolls. There's ups and downs. And I'm totally fine with this. It's a brilliant life. It's a hard life, and I'm okay with it being hard. That's fine. And I think that what we see and try and encourage the people who are newer to the field through is that these the ups and downs can be devastating. You have that great up, and then you hit your first fall on your face down, and you have nothing to compare it to, and suddenly everything is a disaster. And for us in this state where I am now, I've fallen on my face so many times that I'm very familiar with the feeling. And you go, oh yeah, there I am on my face again. I know how this feels, and I know how it feels to get back up again. It's not as much the falling down, it's knowing that, yeah, I can get back up. And this, as you stay in the game longer, game's the wrong word, but as you stay focused in the field, it becomes more of a familiar pattern that you ride without the emotional collapse because, oh crap, that didn't work.
Yeah, and I also, one of the things, of course, that is a factor in a creative field is the financial, what he's calling the roller coaster. One of the breakthroughs that I had was I'm a worrier, and I would always worry about, well, how are we going to pay for this and how are we going to do that? And so I paid the bills in our family, and my breakthrough was I had paid everything. So we didn't owe money to anybody. And I went to Colin, and in the past, he would come and he'd say, hey, we did a sale and we've got, whatever amount of money. And I'd be like, yeah, we've already spent it. And so I wasn't even able to allow us to celebrate this great thing because I'm like, yeah, I'm so focused on that. And so I had paid everything. And I went to him and I said, okay, so, everybody's paid for this month. And we have $162. And it made me laugh. And that was the first time I ever looked at a financial, potentially really scary situation. And I laughed because I realized that in my life, I have never been hungry and I've never been involuntarily homeless. I've been voluntarily homeless, but not involuntarily. And I realized that, as long as I continue to approach our business creatively and say, okay, well, what can we try now and where can we go? Somehow it always works out. And to avoid that fact and continue to live in fear and worry is a stupid decision. And I think for most people, if they are in that roller coaster financially, and you can find a way to look at your life and say, really, what are the facts about this? And some people may have been involuntarily homeless and hungry. But for most of the people, we know that they've never been actually to that desperate a space. And it's just the facts are actually telling you that you are creative and you are strong and you will make it work out. One of the things we came up with this year is that because all of us in the creative fields have been told we need a fallback plan, and we did a talk and we were like, passion doesn't need a backup plan, because if you are passionate about this, whether it's writing or art or music, when one way you're going doesn't work, you're going to find another way, because you love it and you're passionate about it and you're going to make it work out. And we've seen again and again and again more examples of people figuring out how to make it work than we've seen of people that are passionate about what they do, somehow deciding that, this just isn't going to happen and I'm going to go do something else. Even the people that did that and said, I'm going to go work in construction, 10 years later, they're at the top of the game in the art again. It's like that passion that you have for what you do is going to help you figure out how to make all of these things work. And the other part of that is that for the older people, we're always telling them passion doesn't have an expiration date. So if you're passionate about it when you're 15, people are always like, I used to draw all the time and I loved it and it's all I could do. And then I, got a family and kids, that passion is still in there somewhere. And it can come out later. If you didn't do it when you were 20, you can still do it when you're 50. So those are a couple of things that we tell younger and older people we talk to.
Yeah, I love that so much.
When we talk about the backup plan, it's also I've been a fan of the Alexander the Great approach. You arrive and you burn the ships and you fight your way home. There's never been a plan B for myself. This is all I've ever done, and that's it's a focused and intense way to do it. You're basically walking to the edge and stepping off and learning to fly. There isn't that other, if this doesn't work, then whatever. And
I was a really good accountant before.
Yeah. And I myself like that very much. And we've also done a lot of pushback on the starving artist term that you hear so frequently. And it's something that people come up with and they talk about, and they can also get sidetracked with that this is an actual thing. But and sort of give a short version of it. Google the numbers on professional artists, and it's astounding how many people are out there making this work. The artists, the writers, the poets, the conductors, the musicians. We're out there in force in a remarkable number of people who are making this work, and they're making it work in many different ways. There's also the part-timers, but there's a lot of this that is we're doing it. So revel in the fact that we're all there doing it.
That's wonderful. So we're nearing the end of our time. And but I do want to give you a chance to talk about what you guys have coming up. And I really would love you. I love all of your work. They have amazing work, both of them separately. But the thing that I love most is the collaborations that you guys do together. So maybe you could talk about whatever work that you want, but I would love you to talk about the collaborations and how you guys collaborate together as well in there.
Why don't you start this time?
Collaborations, I've never collaborated with anybody. I'm probably going to say that's mostly true. It's not something that I considered as an artistic direction I wanted to do until I met Kristine, and the collaboration ended up. It's an extension of our passion for art and our passion for each other, and it has been something that people inquire about. Imagining that it's going to be a battle, how could you do this? The Clash of the Titans. It's a war, but actually, it's more along the lines of kids building sandcastles and having a good time. We bring more to it from our two directions and four hands, and our imagination, and it's a truly exciting part of who we are as a relationship. We're often, the discussions are almost kid-like, oh, we can do this, and then the other one will say, oh, yeah, we can do that, and we can do this, and it turns into something that's astounding and energizing. It's a fun
I think
part.
that for us, I think a really critical component is that we love each other and we don't want to hurt each other in any way, and we trust each other's vision and skill set and talents. And so I think when you have an idea in its little fledgling stage, the thought of sharing that idea with somebody that might belittle it or minimize it is part of what keeps creatives from sharing their ideas. They don't want people to mess with it until it's at a finished stage, and because it's really hard. You're a writer, so maybe not so hard for you, but for us visual people, we see a picture, and to describe that to another person accurately in a way that they really get it is very difficult to do. And so it's much easier just to make the thing and let people see it when it's done, and then they can go, I see. So I think for us, we have this huge trust for each other where I can tell him an idea I've been thinking about. And the exciting part is what Colin's referring to, that having two minds approaching it, he's bringing his life experiences and creative experiences, and I'm bringing mine. And invariably, the thing that comes out of that joining of creative experiences is better and bigger and more complete than what we would have done on our own. That said, there are directions in Colin's work that he's very passionate about, and directions in my work that I'm very passionate about that we're not as passionate about each other's personal directions. And so oftentimes there'll be what we call the principle. We started delineating things so that people can understand. There are these projects where it's 50-50 and we're talking about it from the beginning. We're both 100% into it and excited, and all of our hands on the sculpture at the same time. And then there are the ones where it might be something that Colin is the principal. And so it's his concept and his driving passion about that idea. And I'll jump in and do the smaller parts of the process, whether I'm actually doing smaller parts of the sculpting or I'm actually just jumping in on the bronze part and helping with the waxes and helping with the chasing. When one of us is in over our heads and we're facing a deadline, the other one invariably will jump in. Even if, it's something that I'm spending time doing and my name is never going to be on it, it's okay, because we're a unit, and anything that one of us does feeds into the success of both of us. So I think there are many different ways that the collaboration actually plays out that we've basically agreed to, that, this works for us. And if there were ever something that one of us was being asked to do that didn't work for us, we would talk about it. But so far, I don't think we've come across that. Have we?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, it's been delightful, and it's people sort of assume that there's going to be specific roles. You do this, I do that, and we divide it up. And it isn't that way. There are times when I'll be doing a figurative piece, and Kristine will come in and do some very small embellishments. And at the same time, I'll be doing we'll have the reverse roles on one of her pieces, where she's doing the figure and I'm coming in and doing the embellishments. It goes back and forth, and as Kristine was saying, it's often a need on a need basis. So if one of us is working on something that's very intense and time consuming, and we're heading for a deadline, the other one jumps in to make sure that we make that deadline. And we sometimes there'll be pieces where I really think that this is totally Kristine's piece. I have had nothing to do with it. And then Kristine will remind me, well, here's a list of things that you worked on, but it's actually still Kristine's pieces. So there's few things that we do that don't have the other one dabbling in it. The exceptions would be the paintings. I'm an oil painter, but even with that, although Kristine doesn't get out the brush, her input is critical to the success of a piece.
Awesome. I love that. I love when people can talk about collaborations in a positive way, because it's not usually talked about in a positive way. So that's basically our time. Unfortunately, I feel like I could talk to you guys for another 10 hours about this, but I do want to finish the same way I finish all of the shows, which is this is the time where a lot of my people listening are artists or writers or driving to work, and they may not have been paying attention 100% for the last 45 minutes. So I'm going to ask them to come back just for the next 5 minutes. While you tell them, each of you, where you can find your work and where they can connect with you if you want to, and the piece of advice that you want them to leave this interview with. It could be something you've said already or something brand new that you've thought of that you haven't gotten a chance to say yet.
Do you want to go first?
ColinPoole.com, ColinPoole.com. And also on Facebook. Everything we post on Facebook is public. And that's the easiest way. We also, Kristine?
Okay, so my website is KristinePoole.com, and that's Kristine with a K, KristinePoole.com. Same name for Facebook. We're on Instagram as at KC Poole, artists, plural, KC Poole artists. Watch for a upcoming blog, which we've been working on. That's one of my wanna-dos that you can access through the website. And
parting shot, the shot over the
I think the parting idea is that passion doesn't need a backup plan, and everybody's vision is important. And if you have something inside of you that you feel a strong urge and inclination to say, to draw, to paint, to sculpt, to write, to sing, it's not random. There's a reason, and somebody out there in the world needs to see or read or hear what it is that you have to say. And whatever it is that you need to do to make that happen, that's kind of your job in this life. And get on it. You'll succeed. You'll find a way.
For me, I would say follow your passion intensely. And as a creative, if you don't do it, no one else can. So you have a responsibility, if you will, to bring it forth into the world. There is nothing that is in your mind and in your creative space that anyone else can do for you. So if you don't do it, it doesn't exist.
That's wonderful. Thank you to both so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. It's been a blast.
So that was Kristine and Colin Poole. I absolutely adored that one. Colin and Kristine have been doing this for so long, and their advice is so valuable when looking at not just how to build a career, but how to sustain one for decades. And I hope you head on over to their websites, check them out, find them on social media, and tell them how much you enjoyed this show. And if you did like it, please subscribe and leave a review. It really, really, really helps. And if you want to go over the top, share it with 3 of your friends who you think would love it too. Head on over to The Complete Creative to see all of our blogs, courses, and the archive of this podcast. That's it from me, humans. I'll see you next time.